A lot of people are now talking about Altseason. Now, you've probably seen the X post, you've probably seen the thumbnails that it's happening and all that kind of stuff. But the truth is, it's far from baked yet. The oven isn't even warm. Now, everyone loves the idea that your favorite altcoin or whatever you've been holding for 3 years is actually going to do a 5x in a matter of weeks. But Altseason isn't a calendar event, unfortunately for some. It is more of a chain reaction, but I think that chain reaction is going to start soon. And I do think, yes, it's quietly loaded and people are getting bored and rage quitting, and there has been horrible events over the last couple of weeks. That's killed a lot of momentum, but that might be changing. So in this video, we're going to go through the absolute obvious checklist that you need to give you the right signals to be on the right side of this market for any given alt season, any given point in any given year. And if you've been liking my content recently, please do slap a like on the video and subscribe. Let's start with the myth. And there's a big one, and I'm sorry. Alt season isn't when everything pumps, right? And I think those days are now gone. And I've said that many times. We're going to explain how liquidity and capital rotation works. So pin your ears back, basically. Because on the screen is Polkadot. Polkadot had a really big run over the course of the last few days. And I put an X post saying it's given 2021 vibes, and it got a lot of engagement on X, right? And that's just how the market works. And it's not from, say, X saying capital's rotation round and all that kind of stuff. It's all about when capital moves. And let's talk about the crux of this, because most of the liquidity in the market is kind of stored away. And we're going to come on to that in a minute. But most of it is actually in Bitcoin, realistically, which has been the biggest trust factor and liquidity layer for the entire market. Even today, a lot of altcoins are running. And that isn't because, it's an alt season. It's because, one, the down bad. Two, the not much liquidity. And when you start getting liquidity added to them, they start growing faster because obviously they've been starved a little bit. When you talk then about a higher beta play, that is alt season with altcoins for obvious reasons, and people will magically just jump into them for some reason. Now, that will then create a lot of false dawns, and I think personally, certainly since 2023, every single pump has been sold aggressively, and it's kind of hard to kind of navigate this market, and it's very, very hard to see which altcoin is going to go next. Even look at Hedra hash graph here. Yeah, we've hit probably key levels on higher time frames. I don't even know what they are. Bear with me. There we go. We've hit key levels and we have bounced. But the thing that I need to talk about, and we will talk about the whole entire checklist, yes, we have bounced. It has created a chain reaction a little bit of, oh, hello. And that's the one thing that I covered in the last few videos is the thing that's getting people down is the fact that every single move has had zero bounces, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's Ethereum, whether it's Solana, Sui, whatever. It has had death by 1,000 cuts. But now all of a sudden, magically we're bounced, and it creates a whole new sensitive layer. But when you look at that chart from July, that is in a horrible downtrend, and that has not changed. Now, alt seasons is about three things you could argue: momentum, rotation, and timing. And right now, the timing is the most interesting thing that most people realize. I don't think we've got rotation. I don't think we've got momentum, nowhere near. But the timing's interesting. Let's talk about it. Now, with an alt season, there's realistically four ingredients. You've got Bitcoin dominance. Let's talk about that. For obvious reason, it is when Bitcoin stops stealing the spotlight, the limelight, and eventually, all of a sudden, altcoins get their bit of fame, realistically. But as I've alluded to in previous videos, and certainly you'll know this, is it worth holding altcoins for 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, which some people do, for 15 minutes of fame? Probably not. The other main ingredient, and it's kind of an obvious one realistically when we talk about what alt seasons are, and even though I've got market liquidity, we don't have to talk about that just yet. The Ethereum/BTC ratio has to flip bullish. Ethereum is like the gateway. It is when the ETF volume of said Ethereum rises and it outperforms Bitcoin, and liquidity leaks further down the chain, which is why we get that Bitcoin, Ethereum, mid caps to micro cap sort of graphic, right? And then on the screen, we've got liquidity. Stable currency dominance is what the metric is for cryptocurrency. Not the Russell, not the S&P, not the NASDAQ. What is happening in our market? Don't get confused. that needs to drop in terms of dominance, i.e. money is flowing out of those stablecoins into real live assets. Money flow. And on the screen, rising market liquidity and exchange inflows. Basically, what is the stable currency market doing? Are they printing more? Is the demand higher? All that kind of stuff. And that will give us stage number 4, total market capitalization assets, excluding Bitcoin, rising. That needs to rise faster than Bitcoin. The BTC pairs need to rise beyond it. And that means new liquidity is finding new assets. It's kind of very, very simple. And it's basically just a relay race. It is. It's like Bitcoin sets the pace, that hands it to the bloody Ethereum world, which then allows the gates of the Ethereum altcoin mania to go mental. But we always fail at that last point. It's like doing 3 rotations and the last one falls flat on its face. That's kind of what happens. But I'm hoping by that previous screen, and I had liquidity on there for a while, you'll know that liquidity hype and the government shutdown has been the biggest problem we've had over Q4 so far. Jump in Patreon. You can ask me all kinds of questions. There's a Discord. There's 4 or 5 deep dive contents, whether it's audio, podcast, live streams, whatever. Jump in, because there was a very good question I'm going to cover in a second. Because someone asked me, government shutdown, is it bullish or bearish? And I said very, very early on, it's bearish. And we pumped after that. And I honestly thought, oh, I've misread this. But the liquidity problem started to show its head pretty quickly after that push. Because when we talk about liquidity, we can see it on the screen. There's been a 19% drop from its record high since the government shutdown, and it's sapped 700 billion from the markets. That's going to be a problem, but that could be rectified very, very quickly, right? Right now, the fuel tank is very dry. This is why we're getting very, very illiquid pumps as well. This is also why nothing's sustaining. And also, when you remove liquidity, you remove the flow. It's like trying to drive a car without fuel, obviously. Now, with that, money is no longer circulating through banks or the markets. This is why certain things have been a bit weird in the stock market as well. But with that, when the government shutdown does stop, it's going to turn on the tap. And if you've had a period of starvation, which I think we're starting to see a change now, when you've got an illiquid asset which has got zero in it and you put some money into it, boom, it just goes, ooh, pop, off it goes, right? It's like a firework. Now that's the situation we've got to find ourselves in, because that's then when we're going to get momentum, because things are popping off. And that whole thing I mentioned before about timing is key here, because into Q4, it is our bullish period going into Christmas. And if you've had a period of starvation and no real data and whatever, all kinds of stuff around the government shutdown and the lack of liquidity, you're going to create action very quickly, and that's going to get people excited. What do people want with altcoins? Volatility. Why do they want it? Because I want to trade it. Why do they want it as well? Because I want to make loads of money, because they don't think they're going to get rich anywhere else, which is also why we also like it in a way, weirdly. So yes, you could argue the government shutdown is going to spark that stage for the short, aggressive rotation as liquidity snaps back, which is what we are used to. Most Q4s, and I'll go through it in a second, give us a bit of a shot upwards. Because even if we look back over the last 2 years at least, we have got this period of real mentalness into Q4 and into Q1. That was the 2023, 2024. Even last year, we had the exact same sort of carbon copy, but we kind of stopped around Christmas time. That's fine. That's the thing. Q4 is interesting. And what we've done, we've created that interesting narrative that, oh, government shutdown, liquidity, that's going to create a chain reaction. We've also got rumors of a stimulus with Donald Trump paying $2,000 dividend to every single US citizen. Now I know it's hopium. And yes, we could run into Q1. But ultimately, if we are going to turn on the tap and we get the 3 recipes, which I mentioned before, which is obviously momentum, the rotation, and the timing, kind of all marries up, right? Because you're going to get momentum from the tap turning on. You're going to get rotation because people are going to get excited again, and people are going to go, oh, let's go. And then obviously you're going to get the timing, which is perfect, realistically, for a Q4 Santa rally. But I don't want you to be that guy that signs up to say Blowfin. And I do recommend you sign up to Blowfin if you're in the UK. There's no KYC or anything like that, which is fine. But what happens is, in a period where it was going to go mental, people will hold onto their altcoins for weeks and weeks and weeks, months and months and months, years and years and years, and there'll be no movement. But all of a sudden, there is movement, they'll flap, and they will risk high, they'll leverage high, or they'll buy random stuff and they'll go through the narratives like AI, real world assets, deep in, whatever. But it's temporary because eventually they get sold into. At any given point, you can go into Blowfin, right? Just to give you an idea. If you go into the hot coins, you're going to see a lot of random stuff here, which is fine. And there's going to be certain narratives that are just going to pop off randomly. Like, look at, obviously, render. You know, you can go on to the timeframes, but you can also go back and look and see how bad has it performed over the period of time. Well, it's not done a lot since certain situation, but obviously we've had a huge liquidity crash. The thing is, this is what the chart looks like. We haven't really done anything yet, and that's the thing. This Q4 might, keyword is might, give us an alt season that allows a mini rotation that is similar to previous Q4s, where it goes up a little bit, but realistically it goes up to, say, resistance. You need to be mindful that with altcoins, as much as you want to rotate into them and make money, you need to rotate out of them as well, because that is where the market makes will sell. At any given point, you look at Binance, you look at Bybit, you look at all the big exchanges, they will drown you because there's still emissions in all these altcoins. There's still team members that will sell. There's still bag holders that will sell as well. There's also influencers that will sell. Just be mindful of that. But let's go through the technicals in a way to educate a little bit on what I've already spoke about. Fact number one, you need to be wary of Bitcoin dominance. When it stalls around resistance and starts coming down, that is one tick in the box. The next tick in the box you are looking for is Ethereum going up. It's starting to stall a little bit. It may be going up. If it does, great. Also check the ETF inflows. Are they doing all right? That's always a good sign too. In my opinion, this is the most important. Where is existing liquidity? You've already seen on this chart, I've talked about it loads. These are the failures of the last alt season that we've had. We kind of went here and didn't even get near it last time. We went up. If we do go down, cool. That might give us a bit of a jolt. If we go lower than this period, it's going to be much better than we anticipate, and it should be quite good. Whether that happens or not is another situation. And obviously the final thing that is kind of obvious, liquidity data, information, news, macro events, whatever it may be, that may well help you. For example, QT ending, which is ending on the 1st of December, just saying. Also, when does QE start, potentially? Is it going to be stimulus? All that kind of stuff. That will help too. What we have learned over the last couple of years, especially, is things move on their own accord because they're good, or they've got liquidity, or they've done good developments, not because everything's rising, right? You have seen over the last couple of years some coins outperforming the market. That is what happens in the stock market. Certain stocks will outperform. That is where I think it's been much harder for most people, because normally what would happen is you'd buy anything and it would go up. Great. Now the job is to stay calm through the boredom and act like an investor. You've got to look at what looks good and buy it. The problem is 99.9% of those assets do rubbish. That's the problem. So whether we get a mini rotation where we get a narrative move, that's much easier to do it because you can treat it a bit more like an index going, oh, AI is running, we'll buy a couple of AI cryptos, or real world assets, we'll buy a couple of those. But normally what happens is the other way around. Bitcoin does well, Ethereum does well. It kind of jolts up a little bit due to the prices of rising there, and then you'll get narratives doing things. But as I say, you've got to kind of plan it, which is hard. But what I would say is stay as liquid as you possibly can. Remain as logical as you possibly can. And don't wait for permission from the crowd or your influencers. Just do your research, find what you like. And ultimately, if you know it's good, go for it. It's all your risk at the end of the day. Not financial advice, of course, but you are dealing with your own money, your own portfolio. But if you wait for, say, the altcoin season index to go green or whatever it goes to, you're probably too late. Also, watch this video. I still think only so many people will survive this.